Hi everyone, this is old Dr. Bill, and today I'm going to tell you the story about MatildaFish. Well, once there was a beautiful little girl named Cinda. Cinda was the most amazing young girl. She liked everybody she met and they all loved her. And what Cinda wanted more than anything else in the whole world was to get a pet. She wanted a dog or a cat, but her parents said they couldn't afford one. Well, she didn't know what she was going to do, but Cinda knew that somehow, some way, she had to be able to get a pet. One day, she and her mother were walking in the mall, and they saw a little sign out in front of the pet store, and it said, "Goldfish, 25 cents." Cinda got so excited, she thought, "I've got more than 25 cents. I could buy a goldfish." She said to her mother, "Mother, look at those goldfish. They're only 25 cents. We could get one of those. I could have it and I could take care of it." Well, her mother said, "We'll see." So they went and they talked to the owner of the pet store, and he explained all the things they needed. A goldfish bowl, some food for the fish, a special chemical to keep the water clean. And when they added it all up, it came to $4.95, and Cinda had $5 that she got from her grandmother on her birthday. She said, "I'll buy it. I'll use all my money. Can we get the fish? Can we buy it?" Her mother said, "Okay, we will." So they took the fish home, and Cinda was so excited. She put it in the bowl, nice clean water. She put some food in, and her little fish just started swimming around that pool and having so much fun. Cinda immediately began to think, what was she going to call her fish? She knew it had to be just the right name. She thought of all kinds of names, but none of them seemed just right. And finally, a name popped into her head that seemed like it could be the right name. And she kept saying to herself, "MatildaFish, MatildaFish." And from that moment on, her special little pet was MatildaFish. Well, no one ever took better care of their pet than Cinda. She put the food in every morning before she went to school. She came home and she made sure that the bowl was clean, that the water was all nice and clean. She put the chemicals in every day. And Cinda liked nothing more than to come home from school and to sit down in front of the goldfish bowl and watch MatildaFish swim around. Well, it went that way for several weeks. But one day Cinda came home and her mother had this sad, sad look on her face. And as soon as Cinda came through the door, she said, "Mom, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" Her mother said, "Something very sad has happened." Immediately Cinda looked over to where the goldfish bowl was. She said, "What? It's MatildaFish. What happened?" She ran over and MatildaFish was floating upside down in the bowl. Cinda started screaming and crying. "What happened to my fish? You killed my fish. What happened to my fish?" Well, the mother said that she hadn't done anything, but somehow MatildaFish must have gotten sick because she had died. MatildaFish had died. Cinda could not believe it. She was so upset. She wanted to take MatildaFish to the vet and try to do something special to help her, but her mother said, "No, there's nothing we can do. There's just nothing we can do." Cinda said, "There is something we can do," and she ran up to her room. She locked the door, and she jumped into her bed and pulled all the covers up over her head. She was so upset she just screamed and cried, and she could not even think about coming out of her room. When her parents called her down for dinner, she said, "No, I'm not coming. MatildaFish." Well, she didn't want to go to school the next day, so she stayed home. And she didn't want to go the next day, but her mom and dad said she had to go. Off she went to school, the saddest little girl that you'd ever want to see. She had her head down. She could hardly do any of her papers. She could hardly even go outside to play with her friends at recess. Well, it went like that for about a whole week. Cinda ate about this much food every day, and she could hardly do anything. She just felt so bad. And finally her mom said, "Cinda, there's a wise grandmother that lives down the street, and I think we should go see her. Cinda said, "Oh, go see." But her mom gently took her by the hand and led her down the street to where the wise grandmother lived, because most people said the wise grandmother knew everything. Her mother was only hoping that maybe she would be able to help them. Well, when they got there, the wise grandma looked at Cinda and knew something really sad had happened. And she asked Cinda if she'd want to come over and sit on her lap, and she surprised herself when she ran over and jumped right in the wise grandma's lap. And the wise grandma just kind of held her and snuggled in with her and said, "Cinda, what happened?" All of the tears came pouring out of Cinda. She cried so hard and so long as she started to tell the story and kept telling the story about how her beloved MatildaFish had passed away. Well, the wise old grandmother said to her, "Cinda, you have so much love inside. Your love is as big as the ocean. It's as wide and deep as the ocean. And that's why you have so many tears to let out. Those tears are so beautiful. If you can let them out, you might feel a little bit better." Well, Cinda kept crying and crying and crying as she told her story. And after she had cried and cried and cried, the wise grandmother said to her, "Cinda, we need to plan what we're going to do with MatildaFish. Do you have a garden in your backyard?" She said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Do you think there's a place in the garden where you could bury your fish?" She said, "Yes, I think there is." She said, "Do you like flowers? What's your favorite flower?" Cinda thought and thought. She remembered the great big giant sunflowers that she had seen in her neighborhood. And she said, "A sunflower." So she and the wise grandmother made a plan. And when they left, she went home and she buried the MatildaFish right in the special place in her garden that they had planned. And she got a sunflower seed from her mother, and she planted it right where she had buried MatildaFish. And she and the wise grandmother had decided that she would go out every single day when she came home from school and sit by the special place in the garden where MatildaFish was buried. And she would let her tears come out and just fall on the ground right in that spot. And she did it. Every day she would come home and go out there and sit in a little chair and just let the tears come flowing out. Day after day, all the tears that she had came out and went down on the ground in the garden. Well, after a few days, she would go out and she wouldn't feel like crying. Sometimes she even felt like laughing. She would smile to herself as she thought of some of the tricks that MatildaFish could do. And sometimes she would go out and just think about other things. And so her mother decided it was time to go back and see the wise grandmother. They went back, and the wise grandmother asked her how she was doing. Were the tears still coming? She said, "Not that many. Only once in a while." And she said, "Yes, that's often how it goes. That's often how it goes." She said, "I think you should always know that any day when you're feeling sad, you can go out there to that special place and let your tears come out if you need to." Well, Cinda did. Sometimes she'd go out once a week, sometimes she'd go out every couple of weeks. But she always knew she had a place to cry if she needed to. And slowly, as the summer wound down, she saw that her sunflower seed had not only sprouted, but was coming up to be this giant flower. And by the end of the summer, the sunflower seed was as big or bigger than her own face. Just a huge, giant flower. And at the end of the summer, when it was all ready, they picked the sunflower seeds and they took them in and they toasted them in their oven. And Cinda wanted to take some of the sunflower seeds down to the wise grandmother. So they did. They put them in a little bag and they took them down. And when the wise grandmother tasted those sunflower seeds, she said, "Oh, they are so delicious." And they all ate some of the sunflower seeds. And they talked about the summer. And they talked about how Cinda had let those tears come out and how she had felt so sad for her MatildaFish. But the wise grandmother said to her, You know, Cinda, now your love is free. Your love is free to come out to all the people in your life. It's not trapped, and it's not being held in. And that love is going to be a special gift that you have to give to all the people around you, all your friends and all your family. And Cinda just kind of smiled and grinned, because somehow she knew what the wise grandmother was saying, because she did have so much love, and it did feel free that she could give it away. Well, Cinda did that. From that day on, she would be sad only once in a great while, but her love kept growing and growing. It kept coming out as she would do special, nice little things for all the people in her life. Well, Cinda had felt so bad, but by the end of the summer she was feeling so much better. She had learned what the wise grandmother had hoped she would learn, that she could let those tears come out and not try to hold them in, and not try to think that she could stay in her room or could hide from her feelings or could make them all go away. And that's the story about the time Cinda learned how to deal with the hardest problem she had ever had to deal with, the passing away of her beloved MatildaFish. The end.